Should you upgrade the intercooler on your MK6 GTI? That's what I'm going to be talking about today. Welcome to Crafty Workshop Builds. I installed a front mount intercooler on my MK6 GTI, and I want to talk about my experience so far and the reason as to why I chose that particular intercooler that I installed, and so on and so forth. I installed the Treadstone Tr8 Intercooler, and the reason why I went with that intercooler was because of the aesthetics and also the reputation and performance. So I know a couple people who had that intercooler and they had pretty good experience with it, and when I did my research on it, it seems like it was a pretty good intercooler. And also, as I said, I like the aesthetics. I like the way how the intercooler looks, so that's the reason why I went with it. The first thing that you will notice is that intercooler is not a direct fit to the GTI. It's somewhat of a universal intercooler, so it's meant to put on multiple different cars and whatnot. So you will have to do some custom work in order for it to fit on your MK6 GTI, and that's what I did. I didn't mind doing the custom work to get it to fit. So that's just me. Maybe you're different, so definitely take that into consideration if you choose to go with this Treadstone Tr8 intercooler. The installation process, to me, it was actually fun rather than hard, but cutting through the crash bar, it was tedious. It was definitely tedious cutting through the crash bar because I believe the metal that they use for the crash bar is like somewhat of a hardened steel, which makes it really hard to cut and drill through. And I found that out the hard way when I actually broke a whole bunch of drill bits trying to drill holes. But eventually, after I broke I would say maybe like 4 bits or something like that, I finally got the hang of how I should use a drill to drill through. So definitely make sure if you want to drill or cut through that crash bar, make sure you have enough cutting wheels. If you're going to be using your grinder, make sure you have enough drill bits so you don't get delayed with the installation. After cutting the crash bar to fit the intercooler, I had to make some brackets, and the brackets and all the hardware that I used to mount the intercooler, I made sure it was stainless steel and aluminum. And the reason why I did that is because I know that the intercooler and the hardware would be exposed to the outside element, and I didn't want to have to deal with anything rusting and having to take the bumper off and replace nuts and bolts and whatnot. So that's the reason why I made sure I went with aluminum and stainless steel. Because I still have my GTI front bumper, that's one of the reasons why I had to cut the crash bar. I believe if you have a Gulf R front bumper, that bumper is actually larger. It has more space inside of the bumper, so you might not necessarily need to cut the crash bar. So definitely take that into consideration as well. If you have a GTI front bumper, you're more likely going to need to cut it in order to make it fit. But if you have the Gulf R upgrade, or if you have a Gulf R, you probably don't need to cut the crash bar at all. It might just fit. So definitely take that into consideration if you choose to go with this particular intercooler upgrade. Another thing that I had to do, because I went with this universal intercooler, was that I had to make custom pipes. Yes, the stock pipes, those pipes won't fit with this intercooler, so bear that in mind. I didn't mind making the custom pipes. I actually had fun making those, and I like the way how it makes the intercooler look more aggressive. So yeah, so for me, those pipes connecting to the front of the intercooler and the way how it looks at the front, I feel like it gives it a more aggressive look. If you're gonna be making your own custom pipes, you can plan ahead and see which angle pipes you need. If you need a 45, 290s, or whatever angles you need depending on your setup, you can plan ahead and see the pipes that you need and buy it single. But here's the thing, if you buy it single or piece by piece, it's gonna be more expensive. So what I did, and what I also recommend that you do, is buy a bundle kit. When you buy the bundle kit, it's gonna come with more than you need, but it's gonna be cheaper in the long run. So yeah, yes, you're gonna end up with extra pipes after you finish the install, but it's gonna be a lot cheaper. Did I notice any difference after I did the install? Yes, I did. I took the car out on the road for a test drive, and I noticed after the first pull, second and third pull, the temperature didn't increase as much as it would as when I was running the stock intercooler. When I had my stock intercooler, I noticed that after every pull, the air intake temperature would increase. So on the first pull, the air intake temperature, it would be pretty close to the ambient air temperature. right? But after you do like your second pull, your third pull, you'll notice that the temperature is increasing drastically. So after I installed this upgraded intercooler, I noticed that the temperature, the intake air temperature, was not increasing as much as it would have on my stock intercooler. So yeah, that's what I noticed right off the bat after I did this upgrade. Installing this intercooler, I didn't expect to get any kind of horsepower gains, to be honest with you. I was just expecting that I would be able to reduce my intake air temperature or help to keep the intake air temperatures low, and that's exactly what it did. So I'm pretty happy with the install. When it comes to upgrading the intercooler on the Mark 6 GTI, you actually have a lot of options. I see some people upgrading the stock intercooler with another upgraded intercooler in the stock location. So it's just a matter of just doing a swap, so everything fits, and you just be swapping out the stock intercooler and installing an upgraded one in the stock location. I see some people do an intercooler upgrade and they do something that I believe it's called a bi-cooler, where you keep your stock intercooler and you install a front mount intercooler and you install a Y pipe, and you're essentially using both intercoolers at the same time. If that kind of setup sounds interesting to you, you can do some research and figure out if that'll work for your setup and your power gains and whatever you're trying to achieve with your build. So yeah, definitely look into that if it's something that sounds exciting to you. The reason why I went with a front mount intercooler setup is because I like the idea of having the intercooler at the front of the car. Front of the car meaning that the cold air will hit the intercooler first, and then after that it will hit the AC condenser, and then it will hit the radiator. Now the stock location of the stock intercooler is in between the AC condenser and the radiator is behind it. So we all know that the radiator produces heat, and also the AC condenser produces heat as well. So heat from those two units, it will make the intercooler get hot, and that's what I didn't want. So for me, it just makes a lot more sense to have the intercooler at the front of the car. Would I recommend doing this particular intercooler upgrade on your Mark 6 GTI? Well, it depends. It depends if you're up for all the custom work or if you want something that's just gonna bolt right up to the car. It all depends on the tools that you have, and if you want to go through the hassle of doing all the custom work in terms of cutting the crash bar and the bumper support and whatnot. If you're the kind of person who you just want to do a quick swap, then I would say just not do this. There's a bunch of options out there, even front mount intercooler options that's a direct bolt on to the Mark 6 GTI. So if you want a front mount intercooler and you don't want to have to do custom work, you can do your research and go with another brand that offer a direct fit front mount intercooler for the Mark 6 GTI. If you like doing the custom work and you have the tools and you don't mind cutting the crash bar, I'll say go for it, because I know that some people don't like the idea of cutting the crash bar also, so that's also something to take into consideration. After you make your mind up and you decide to upgrade your intercooler, I say make sure you do your proper research before you decide on a brand, right? And the reason why I say that is because not all of these intercoolers are made the same. Some of them are just designed to flow more air, and some of them are just designed to be more efficient. Depending on your project, if you're gonna be at stage 2, stage 3, take that into consideration and make sure you get an intercooler that's gonna accommodate your build. Was the install worth it? For me, I would say yes. Why? Because I really enjoyed doing the custom work, and I like the idea that I was able to custom fit this thing on my car, and it did exactly what I wanted to do. I like the aesthetics of it. I like the way how it looked. I like the way how everything turned out. So yeah, it worked out pretty good for me. And even in terms of like pricing, so this intercooler, it's not expensive, so it's not something that's gonna make you break the bank. And for me to have an intercooler that I like and it works, it does exactly what I want to do, and it's also I wouldn't say it's the cheapest intercooler out there that you could get, but it wasn't the most expensive. So that's one thing that I definitely appreciate about this install. One thing that I had to take into consideration when I was searching for an upgraded intercooler on my car was my turbo size, right? So on my car, I have a big turbo upgrade, which is the GTX 3071R. So whatever intercooler that I was gonna get, I had to make sure that it would be compatible with that turbo and they would work together and do what it's supposed to do. So in other words, if I didn't get an intercooler that was gonna flow enough air, it would pretty much restrict the turbo, and I didn't want that. So bear that in mind when you're doing your upgrade as well. If you have a big turbo, definitely take that into consideration with the intercooler that you're getting, and make sure that it's able to flow enough air. If you do decide to upgrade your intercooler to the same one that I have, I did make an installation video, and I will have that video linked in the description below, so feel free to check it out if you haven't seen it already. Let me know in the comment section below if you still have the stock intercooler in your car, and if you decide to upgrade your intercooler, let me know what brand or type of intercooler you were thinking to go with. And that's going to be for this one. I'll catch you in the next one, and stay tuned.